Hello and a very warm welcome to today's session brought to you by Team Testbook Super Coaching. I hope all of you are doing really well and you had a very good weekend and are all set and prepared to actually study. मैं काफ़ी सारे messages देख रही थी. Of course, West Bengal set के लिए also we're going to be training you from tomorrow onwards. So हम कल क्या करेंगे? Along with the class sessions that we've prepared, we'll make sure that we're also giving you additional support and practice for West Bengal set as well. Okay? Good evening, Prerna. Good evening, Dominator. Good evening, Shabnam. विदाउट फर्दर अड्यू जल्दी से स्टार्ट करते हैं. राइट, हाय अंजलि, हाय अर्शिया, गुड इवनिंग. देखिए, ऑफ कोर्स हम लोग बातें करते रह सकते हैं. वी कैन टॉक अबाउट व्हाट वेंट रॉन्ग इन द लास्ट स्ट्रेटजी, बट नाउ इज द टाइम टू एक्चुअली गेट स्टार्टेड विद योर थ्योरेटिकल कॉन्सेप्ट्स, मेकिंग श्योर कि एक वीडियो में मैंने बोला भी है दैट योर थ्योरेटिकल कॉन्सेप्ट्स along with critical reasoning skills are actually very important to clear GRF. तो इन्हीं चीजों को याद में रखते हुए rather than just like talking too much, of course हम YT shorts and other चीजों से we'll keep on constantly motivating, but let's just very quickly, okay Shabnam, that also noted, Himachal Pradesh set also noted, but without further ado, I think it's also very important for all of us to actually get started, gear up, and make sure that we are preparing for the next leg, that is your upcoming exams that are there. Okay, so 200% fully noted about your HP set, fully noted about your West Bengal set. A lot of you are also saying about West Bengal set, so fully noted about that. Okay, good evening, good evening. Okay, तो आज की क्लास में देरी नहीं करते हुए फटाफट से स्टार्ट करते हैं. सबसे पहले हमारी प्रायोरिटी क्या होगी? हम टॉप 10 पोएट्स को दो पार्ट्स में देखेंगे. आज हम तीन बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट पोएट्स और साथ में अ क्विक इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ इंडियन पोएट्री. सो टोटल हम 5 पोएट्स आज कवर करेंगे. तीन इंपॉर्टेंट मॉडर्न पोएट्स and then two of your earlier poets that are there, and we look at the evolution of poetry. Secondly, मैंने आपको होमवर्क दिया था comment section में, उसके ऊपर भी हम लोग quickly discussion करेंगे. So lot of stuff to actually gear up for. So I think without further ado, let's just very quickly get started. Now I have a question for all of you. हमें पता है William Blake, the first generation romantics को ज्यादातर हम first and second generation में compile करते हैं. First generation romantics were inspired by French Revolution, whereas second generation romantics were disillusioned with the French Revolution. That's one particular kind of understanding of the first and second generation romantics. You can William Blake is there, but there's this one important Indian poet that we have. I'll shift over here so that all of you are able to see this. One important poet actually sets the edifice. He is literally a mystic. जिस तरह से Blake लिख रहे हैं, जिस तरह से Blake is trying to connect with the world outside, right? Yes, Devashish will talk about the nose as well. We'll talk about the nose as well. But जिस तरह से we are able to see that Blake is also trying to trying to talk about the mystic world. There is one Indian version of the Blake. Who's this person that we're talking about? अर्शिया, आपकी जो कोर्स है वो 16 दिसंबर से ऑन हो जाएगा. 15 को आपका ओरिएंटेशन भी है. दैट विल बी ऑन द ऐप प्लेटफॉर्म इटसेल्फ. दैट विल कम ऑन द ऐप प्लेटफॉर्म इटसेल्फ. सो दिस इज समथिंग दैट we'll be talking about. Your classes are going to be starting from 18th December onwards, right? So that's the batch that's actually starting. So please make a note of that as well. Okay, all right. So who is the Indian version? Who's the Indian version of Blake? Who's this Indian version of Blake that we're talking about? No, it is not Toru Dutt. It's not Toru Dutt. Toru Dutt हम लोग बाद में बात करेंगे. We'll talk about Toru Dutt. Toru Dutt was also inspired, but this is not Toru Dutt that we're talking about. This is Charushil Singh that we are looking at. Okay, so without further ado, let me just quickly introduce you. I'll hide myself so that you're able to see. This is Charushil Singh that we're talking about. Okay, that's the first poet for today, right? That's the first important poet for today. कई बार हम देखते हैं that we actually forget these Indian poets, but they're very important क्योंकि आपके anthologies में भी ये पाए जाते हैं, आपके काफी सारे works में आते हैं. So Charushil Singh is unfortunately India's forgotten poet, लेकिन इनके ऊपर आपके questions आते हैं. आपके interview के questions में भी Indian poetry के ऊपर काफी ज्यादा weight बढ़ता है अगर आपको ये सारे के सारे poets पता हैं. और Indian Blake, इन्होंने अपनी thesis भी William Blake के ऊपर करी थी, right? So when he was doing his PhD also, we were able to see that Varanasi University से काफी अच्छे से associated हैं, and he's one of the almost forgotten poets, right? And it is immaculate. एक छोटी सी आयु में he started talking about, देखो वो क्या रहा था, वो जो context of loss of faith, modernism, ये सब इंडिया में भी आ रहा था, world was suffering from it, and that's where you are able to see that Charushil Singh is saying, hey buddy, look at it, आप इंडिया के traditions को देखिए, उपनिषद्स को देखिए, question भी कर रहे हैं साथ में. So he's not just like looking at Upanishads, but you know he's also questioning. So therefore he's considered to be this meditative poet that we are having, right? This is, he's considered to be, of course, देखो, see, Nizam Ezekiel वगैरह सबको पता होगा, right? Important works, and it's not that Nizam Ezekiel is not important, ठीक है? बट ये सब भी आपको पता होना चाहिए. और जैसे कि मैंने कहा, टॉप 10 पोएट्स में से हम 5 इंपॉर्टेंट पोएट्स आज करेंगे और 5 कल की क्लास में कंटिन्यू करेंगे. सो आवर फर्स्ट इंपॉर्टेंट पोएट फॉर टुडे दैट वी आर हैविंग इज चारुशील सिंह, राइट? एंड लाइक आई टोल्ड यू, चारुशील सिंह कौन है? ही इज अ मेडिटेटिव पोएट. ये किसके बारे में लिख रहे हैं? ही इज टॉकिंग अबाउट लॉस ऑफ फेथ जो आ गया था. ही इज सेइंग गो बैक टू द ट्रेडिशंस, गो बैक टू द उपनिषद्स, गो बैक टू द Vedic texts that are there. और बहुत छोटी सी आयु में he was actually depicting. I'll just share a few of the beautiful lines that he's written, and you know that's exactly what happens, that we often get confused, we often get a little concerned about people, but Charushil Singh is trying to get us back on track, so that becomes important. ठीक है? तो ये पोइट्री के द्वारा बताना चाहते हैं कि कैसे आपकी सोल की जर्नी होती है. He also says a poet is a critic and a critic is a poet, right? These are also very famous lines that Charushil Singh talks about, that you know how a poet is actually a critic and a critic is also a poet that you're talking about. So, you know, he was trying to talk about how poetry can be used to reinstill faith in people at a time when people had lost all faith. जब लोगों ने सारा का सारा अपना faith छोड़ दिया था, Charushil Singh was saying let's go back, right? Let's just go back and understand the faith altogether. ठीक है? तो इनकी पोइट्री इज अ काइंड ऑफ अ स्पिरिचुअल क्वेस्ट. जैसे होता भी है, यू नो, अगर आप लिखते हैं इट्स वेरी कैथार्टिक, यू ट्राई टू कनेक्ट टू लॉर्ड ऑलमाइटी. आपका इतना ज्यादा मिस्टिक, यू नो, जो मिस्ट्रीज हैं, या लॉ ऑफ मैनिफेस्टेशन क्या है? लॉ ऑफ मैनिफेस्टेशन इज द सेम, राइट? That one particular overarching force will ensure that you know you get those things all together. So ये भी आपके लिए बहुत ज्यादा important हो जाता है. Poetry for him is a kind of a penance, it's a kind of a prayer. ये भक्ति movement, सूफी movement, कबीर हो गए, तो वो भी क्या कर रहे थे? They were also trying to make sure that via poetry they were reaching out to their Almighty, and this is exactly what Charushil Singh does. आप देखोगे कि इनके काफी सारे mythological characters हैं. ये ancient, you know, एंशियंट लोगों के पास भी जा रहे हैं. He's coming, there's one work that we'll talk about, the Indian hero. So चारुशील सिंह का भी एक वर्क जो हम देखेंगे, the Indian hero, we'll be looking at it. So he's going back to those things. So again, कौन से context में चारुशील सिंह was writing? चारुशील सिंह was writing at a context जो modernism का context था. Loss of faith was something that was very evident. You were able to see, remember Ezra Pound, T.S. Eliot, even they are trying to talk about the barrenness of the modern society. जो modern society की barrenness है, the kind of barren land that we are able to see, even he's trying to talk about it. So again, poetry as a spiritual journey, poetry as a way to connect to God Almighty, poetry as penance. So that meditative poet who's Blakean in tradition, right, is Charushil Singh that we are talking about. Okay, so please याद रखिएगा, ये कुछ इनके वर्क्स हैं. आप देखते हो कई बार आपको मैच द फॉलोइंग मिलता है, टेराकोटा फ्लेम्स. अभी हम लोग, I will be talking to you about Tapascharam. This is again something that we'll talk about. Songs of Life and Death is also beautiful. Indian Hero, Creation Cocktail, ये कुछ बहुत पॉपुलर आपकी पोएट्री कलेक्शंस हैं चारुशील सिंह के द्वारा. And you know, Charushil Singh would actually, because poetry for him was also a mode of connecting with Almighty, he was a meditative poem altogether. You're actually able to see he tells you about the modern reality, जो everyday experiences हैं उनके problems के बारे में भी he actually explains it really well. So make a note that these are the important collections that you're able to see. अब देखिए यहाँ पर तपश्चरणम, when you're talking about तपश्चरणम, why is this important? It actually reminds you of Tagore and Aurobindo. ये जो work है ये this is reminiscent, ये आपको याद दिलाता है of Tagore, ये आपको याद दिलाता है of Aurobindo का, Tagore का गीतांजलि की याद दिलाता है. 108 songs हैं, Remember when we were talking about astrophil and Stella, so आप connect करते रहिए कि कहाँ कहाँ पर आपको ये same number मिलता है, so you'll have to remember that. Again, what is he trying to tell you? He's trying to tell you about this mystic journey, right? Why a poetry is taking you, and Tapasyanam is a brilliant example of that. ठीक है, तो डिवोशनल, योगिक, स्पिरिचुअल ट्रेडिशंस, इन सब का मर्जर हो रहा है इन अ कॉन्टेक्स्ट जहां पर लॉस ऑफ फेथ था, प्रॉब्लम्स हो रही थी लोगों को, दैट यू वर एबल टू एक्सपीरियंस. तो ये प्लीज आप याद रखिएगा कि तपस्या जो वर्क है कैसे आ रहा है, व्हाट इज इट ट्राइंग टू टॉक अबाउट. और जैसा मैंने आपको कहा, ही इज राइटिंग इन द कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ लॉस ऑफ फेथ, right? Good evening, Ravi. Good evening, bache. He's writing in the context of loss of faith altogether. So Charushil Singh ka, Tapasyanam is actually an important work. Now look at these lines. They're beautiful lines. We are the frogs in the muddy pond, living life without a glimpse of land. Right? Eating the filth and making vain claim of our sheer nothingness or shame. Sometimes when people are so proud, when they're so arrogant, what are you able to see? What are you actually able to experience? For a little piece of bread, I rove from door to door in the hideous silence of the night for stomach's delight. Now, things so deep and penetrative these are. A lot of times we are ready to lose our values, we're ready to lose our ethics altogether just for the sake of making sure that we have a bread coming back home. Right? The doors of the world are closed for me to remain unfed, indignant dogs bark, etc. etc. So, ये आप देखिए, the simply written, beautiful works जो आपको बता रहे हैं about your journey. And remember when he was writing, be it Tapasyanam or other works also, ये बहुत छोटे थे. He wasn't very big. Imagine for a 20, something man to understand so much of meditative realm, understand spirituality in that deeper sense, that was something which was absolutely praiseworthy. Good evening, Supratim. Good evening, Pragati. Good evening, Neha. Please come on time. I hope, so 10 minute का पहले video को एक बार revise करके देख लीजिएगा. We're talking about top 10 Indian poets, out of which we've reached out to the first one. That's Charushil Singh. He's the Blake of India. He is also meditative in nature. अभी हम तपस्चरणम एक वर्क है उसकी लाइंस को एक बार देख रहे थे to give you a broad based understanding. ठीक है, एक और just imagine when you're talking about songs of innocence and experience by Blake, वो भी आपको दो realm दिखा रहे हैं. Right, so when you're talking about songs of innocence and experience, right, you've seen so many poems also come in your exam from songs of innocence and experience. What are you able to see? Good evening, Neha bache. What are you able to see? This is same, right? Charushil Singh jo likh rahe hain, songs of life and death, that's actually the same. Anguished soul, not just here, Tapas Charnam or even other works that he's writing, the Indian hero, the soul is actually anguished. हमें पता भी नहीं होता है, but हम परेशान हैं. It can be stress of work, it can be stress of any other thing that we are having. We're all anguished souls. We are all anguished souls. We are all scared souls altogether. ये हमारी postmodern reality है. This is our postmodern reality that we are talking about. तो myth of creation को absurdity के साथ ही connects that all together. अच्छा, Charushil Singh is also famously considered. He says that history is a war, right? History, that means कि you cannot trust history. History का हर एक का narrative अलग होता है. That's his only problem that he has with history. So he says history is a war. That was what that is what Charushil Singh had said about history. So he that is what he considered. That is what he considered, right? This is what he was actually considering altogether. Indian hero again. Arjunas are not born in assemblies that tear naked Draupadi's clothes. They take birth in jungles. So again. एक तो he's going back. He's trying to go back, revisit spirituality है. साथ ही साथ में there is questioning. Right? There's just not an open acceptance of whatever is. देखो, दो तरह की चीजें होती है. या तो आप कहते हो जो भी चीज पास्ट में हुई है वो बेस्ट है. दूसरी चीज ये है कि आप कह रहे हो हमें अपने पास्ट पे जाना है और उसमें कुछ कुछ चीजें गलत भी थी, उसमें कुछ कुछ चीजें क्वेश्चनेबल भी थी, उसमें हम सारी चीजें एक्सेप्ट नहीं कर सकते हैं. जैसे पोस्ट कलोनियलिज्म क्या आपको बताता है, ऑफ कोर्स सर्टेन थिंग्स दैट द कॉलोनाइजर्स डिड वर एब्सोल्युटली बैड एंड इनकरेक्ट, बट नॉट everything that they did were bad and incorrect. राइट. सो प्लीज यहाँ पर आपको याद रखना है. और राइट, कोई बात नहीं रावी, कोई बात नहीं. सो ये चीज आपको थोड़ी बहुत ध्यान में रखनी होगी. सो बी इट when we are talking about Tapascharanam, or we are talking about Indian hero, or any other work that Charushil Singh is writing, these are certain important things. ठीक है. So हमारा first important poet for today that we had is Charushil Singh. For all those who joined in late also, this is what I was telling you, that out of the top 10 we'll be doing 5 today, right? And then of course the other 5 tomorrow. That is what I told you. Now coming back, I told you at the very beginning, we'll also be analyzing very quickly your comment section before I give you the homework for today, right? So I saw Debashish, he's absolutely right. It's telling you the story of the St. Petersburg official. He leaves his nose, absolutely right. Okay, it appeared in the journal Contemporary by Alexander Pushkin. It's divided into 3 parts. This was good. So Debashish is one person. By the way, Wednesday ko I'll be announcing that when you write it in the comment section, what's the incentive that you will be getting. Dominator Rajneesh was the second person. Tanmay Das, very good, excellent, was the third person who put it, right? He was the third person who put it on the comment section. I'm just hiding myself so that you'll be able to see it as well before I give you the homework question again for today. Okay. Then Priya Gupta, excellent. So Priya Gupta was the fourth person. Prerna Kataria ne bhi bilkul was a really good. Supratim had also written it, right? Supratim had also written it, and Monica Sharma had also written it. That's excellent. Okay. And most of you were bang on right. Most of you were bang on right about Nose by Gogol. ठीक है. एक तो Nose जो है ना, it is दो तीन चीजों में divided है. सबसे पहले it is an example of magical realism. Second चीज जो है, it is actually a very important piece of Russian literature that tells you how high-headed, कितने arrogant, कितने proud होते थे. There was this feeling of pride that these Russian aristocratics had altogether. So that was another thing that you were able to see largely. ठीक है. So I'll be discussing that also very quickly. Your homework question for that last class that we had. Now, remember, we've always seen what is magical realism. You're actually using the matrix of reality. आप real चीजों के बारे में बता रहे हो, concerns real हैं, but you're using some absurd things. Now, suddenly, if I feel anguished, I'll start bleeding, red color, blood as tears. So that is something which is magical realism. Maybe I'm talking about a real concern, but that is what you're able to see. Just Stuart Little, I don't know if you've seen this movie, the anthropomorphic mouse, anthropomorphic, anthropos, that means mankind, human features होते हैं Stuart Little के. He's talking to the family all together. That's the element of magical realism. और कई बार हम लोग ये देखते हैं कि हमारे काफी सारा कंटेंट हम कंज्यूम करते हैं. जैसे अभी I was recently watching this Oh My God जो नई मूवी आई थी, उसके अंदर भी you were able to see कि magical realism का element था, right? तो ये टर्म कहाँ से आया, क्योंकि आपके एग्जाम में ये चीजें पूछी जाती हैं. ये मैजिकल रियलिज्म का टर्म कहाँ से आया है, प्लीज याद रखिएगा. इसके जर्मन टर्म, सो मैचेस्टर रिलिस्मस, ये भी क्वेश्चन आपका पूछा जा सकता है, राइट? ये भी क्वेश्चन आपका पूछा जा सकता है. एंड इट वाज कॉइन्ड बाय दिस जर्मन क्रिटिक कॉल्ड फ्रांस रो. सो दोनों के दोनों, हाउ इट इज अ German term, how it is a German term, and how you are able to see that Franz Roh, right? How you are able to see that Franz Roh is a person who is actually associated with it. Please remember that altogether. So within the matrix of reality, you are trying to put in magical elements. आपका सलमान रश्दी का Midnight's Children, Beloved by Toni Morrison, all of these are examples which are using magical realism, things that are beyond. What is magic? Magic is something that cannot be rationally explained, right? Suddenly यहाँ पर एक पानी की bottle आ गई, शू, तो that cannot be explained. Now of course you saw that I picked it up altogether. So please keep that in mind. And ये कौन सा सबसे पहला magical realist writer समझा जाता है? Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes, Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. लेकिन उससे भी ज़्यादा, what are you able to see that Borges, right? George Luis Borges, right? The Argentinian writer that we are having, he is considered. So there was this basic essay that came in 1955. आपको पता होना चाहिए, called Magical Realism in Spanish American Fiction, right? ये किसने लिखा था? Angel Flores ने लिखा था. Please remember that. So Angel Flores क्या कह रहे हैं? Angel Flores कह रहे हैं कि सारे post colonial writers scholars, in order to write differently from the European counterparts, they are actually using a new style of writing. And what is the new style of writing? This new style of writing is the magical realist style of writing. That is what they discussed. ठीक है, तो प्लीज इसको थोड़ा सा आप ध्यान में रखिएगा. You will have to keep this in mind altogether, that how according to him it is actually Borges. But you as students of literature should not forget, especially for your PhD subjective answers, that even when we are talking about Don Quixote, even when we are talking about Gulliver's Travels, इन सब में भी magical realist elements हैं. Gulliver's Travels, ये सारे works में भी आप क्या देख पाते हो? Magical realism आप देख पाते हो. So please remember that. And Gogol का notes में क्या हो रहा है? Where is it set? It's set in Saint Petersburg, Imperial Russia में है. And Kovalov की story है. Almost all the students would put the comments in the comment section had that we are talking about Kovalov's story. He wakes up one morning and he sees that his nose has disappeared altogether, right? He wakes up and he sees that his nose has actually disappeared, और वो जाता है ढूंढने के लिए कि भाई मेरा नाक कहाँ है, मेरा नाक कहाँ है, मेरा नाक कहाँ है, right? So he later finds it going about in the town, right, dressed in the uniform of a state councillor, and he refusing to even recognize him. Nobody, without his nose, nobody is recognizing him, right? I don't know if you've seen, I'm forgetting the name of this movie. I'll tell you. That's also like a really funny movie in which the same thing happens and nobody is able to recognize the king, and it's supposed to be very funny. Okay, he also wants to file a police complaint altogether. Okay, but nobody is ready to listen to him. Of course, his nose is soon found and brought back by a policeman, right? But उसमें भी क्या problem आ रही है? उसमें problem ये आ रही है that he's not able to put his nose back at all, right? And the doctor he calls for the purpose says it will be absolutely impossible now to do this entire thing. Okay, and finally nose miraculously is back on his face suddenly, miraculously. Rip Van Winkle, so when we are talking about Rip Van Winkle में भी यही होता है by Washington Irving. Rip Van Winkle में भी that is what you are able to see by Washington Irving. So उसके अंदर भी man sleeps, then wakes up, Washington Irving wakes up to see everything changed altogether. Okay, so that is what you're able to see. So absolutely funny thing. अब इसको psychologically भी read किया गया है as castration complex, that we are able to see that when you're castrating somebody, psychoanalysis के terms भी आपको याद होने चाहिए, ये आपसे पूछे जाते हैं. एक तो Kovalov जो है, he is having so much of basically losing nose is a catastrophe, because it's like आपकी नाक कट गई है. It's representing your so-called position in the society altogether. And like I said, it can also be read as castration complex, right? Castration complex, where the symbol of your power has been taken. Castration basically means your penis, which holds the power of a male dominant society, has been castrated overall. So castration complex आपका आ जाता है. So clearly that is also psychological reading of the nose, right? So I'm really glad Kovalov, everybody had it. Kovalov finding his nose, everybody got it. Gogol ki story, the nose, you were able to answer it correctly. I was really happy with most of those responses, so that's fantastic. Now, after Charushil Singh, our first poet, let's move on to the second poet. And the second poet is very important, Dilip Chetri, right? The second poet that we have, actually, nose is, by the way, a precursor also to magical realism. Remember that, okay? Our second poet for today is Dilip Chetri. Okay, अब Dilip Chetri, why is he important? Why is Dilip Chetri important? What are you able to see that he's writing both in English and in Marathi? And we are able to look at this ambulance ride altogether. So again, ambulance ride jo collection hai, that was very important collection. One of the most important things about Dilip Chetri is the way that he captures the everyday reality. जैसे चारुशील सिंह is the Blake, he's meditative, he's writing, चाहे वो Indian hero हो या Song of Life and Death हो, तो उसके अंदर एक meditative appeal आ रहा है. दिलीप छेत्री के केस में आप क्या देख पाते हो? He is trying to represent the reality. अभी हम केकियन दारूवाला के बारे में भी बोलेंगे. He was associated with a movement called the Little Magazine movement. Little Magazine magazine movement से he was associated. So Dilip Chetri जो है, he was associated with this altogether. And you know, what are you able to see? You're able to see that little magazine movement से आपका जो magazine Shabda hai, that is also associated. Shabda is also work that is actually associated altogether. Post independent Indian poetry को shape करने में Chaitanya has played a very critical role. And a lot of you who write, you know, Maharashtra set exam, आपके लिए Dilip Chetri automatically becomes important, if not in your exams, but in your interviews. There's often a question that you will be able to see altogether. Okay, he of course traveled a lot. He lectured a lot altogether. So you see the global perspective coming in Dilip Chetri's writings. You know, the writer of the ambulance ride. अच्छा, दिलीप छेत्री का द लाइट बर्ड्स ब्रेक्स थ्रू द लुनेटिक स्लीप. अच्छा, अब आपने ल्यूनेटिक्स कहाँ पर देखे हुए हैं? एडवर्ड लियर नॉनसेंस वर्ड्स लिखते हैं. So Edward Lear is writing. What is Edward Lear writing? He's writing the nonsense verse, right? What is he writing? He's writing the nonsense verse. The nonsense verse is written by Edward Lear. Toba Tek by Sarath Hassan Manto. Alice. So even when you talk about Alice in the Wonderland, like, you know, a little nonsensical things happening. यहाँ पर, you know, the light of birds breaks the lunatic sleeps. Breaks. Now it is not. देखो technically क्या होना चाहिए? Sound. है ना, टेक्निकली आपको साउंड ऑफ द बर्ड शुड ब्रेक द स्लीप. स्लीप में तो बेसिकली वही होता है. इट्स नॉट लाइट टेक्निकली ऑफ द बर्ड. बर्ड की लाइट तो नहीं है. आप बल्ब की लाइट बोल सकते हो. You can say that, you know, the light of the bulb, right? You can definitely talk about the light of the bulb, but you can't really talk about the light of, you know, the bird. So again, that is what you know, he's trying to talk about कि एक ostensible person who's considered to be insane, उनके mind में क्या चल रहा होता है. He wakes up at dawn altogether. So you know, that is what he's trying to talk about. Everyday reality, everyday sensations. उनको दिलीप छेत्री he brings to light. He's bringing that to light altogether in his writings. That is what you are able to see. Okay, that is what we are largely able to see altogether, right? So please keep that in mind. He wakes up, you know. So what are you able to see? He wakes up the lunatic's dreams, and finally they come to an end altogether. So again, you know, the brain, the comparison that he's making, trying to sensitize us altogether. So again, छोटी छोटी चीजें जो हम इग्नोर कर देते हैं. Chetri is trying to make us more sensitive towards those things via his writings. That is, you know, a very important appeal that Chetri does, right? So Dilip Chetri, the Marathi writer, Dilip Chetri, the writer who's famously known for making sure that, you know, people understand that there are day-to-day sensations that are there. We can't really ignore those. तो ये एक बहुत important part play करता है दिलीप Chetri, right? This is actually a very important thing that Dilip Purushottam Chetri actually plays altogether. And overall, I think a lot of you would be having Chetri's poems, you know, in your syllabus, because कई बार what are you able to see? You're able to see that his poems are there, like Flesh Tint. I remember I'd even taught at the university Ode to Bombay. By the way, you can even write it down. Ode to Bombay is also like a very famous work by Dilip Chetri. So you're able to see Ode to Bombay comes in, right? Ode to Bombay काफी सारे लोगों के syllabuses में भी है, and we are saying that he's a Marathi writer who's written extensively altogether. There's a beautiful work, वो भी syllabuses में आती है, The House of My Childhood. So small little things that we are ignoring, right? So Ode to Bombay is one work. Then he's written The House. You can even write it down. The House of My Childhood. The house of my childhood stood empty. अभी भी कितने सारे लोगों के लिए their ancestral houses or places where they have lived plays a very critical role, right? So again, you'll have to keep that in mind. उल्टा आ जाके just try to explore a little about Dilip Chetri's writings. Try to just get a sense of what all Dilip Chetri has predominantly written in the kind of writing that he, you know, that he gets all together. Moving on to the third poet, so Charushil Singh, Dilip Chetri, the Marathi writer, writing works like Ode to Bombay, right? Talking about his empty childhood house. Ambulances Ride is a very important collection that you have. Now going to the third important writer that we have, that is KKN Daruwala. और इसके बाद जो बाकी दो writers हैं, they are actually old writers that we're talking about. Old writers in the sense they're a part of your earlier poetic tradition, pre-independent tradition. Okay? Now, when we're talking about Keki and Daruwala, what is the most interesting part about Keki and Daruwala? He was born, in undivided India altogether, and he was born in Lahore in 1937. He got his MA from Punjab University, Chandigarh, and then he joined the civil services as well, that you were able to see. Now, very important, what are you able to see? Crossing of Rivers is like a brilliant book altogether. Winter poems, The Keeper of the Dead, all of these are there. Rather, The Keeper of the Dead को साहित्य अकेडमी अवार्ड मिला है. ये क्वेश्चन आपका आता भी है, ठीक है. A Summer of Tigers क्वेश्चन पूछा जाता है. What are you able to see? Again, this man Keki and Daruwala talks about everyday realities, right? He is talking about the everyday realities. That is what you are able to see altogether. But his poetry is talking about everyday reality from an inward looking spectrum. I'll talk about my day to day reality, but what am I feeling? That will be something that will be highlighted. So, inward looking ho jata hai. What is it? It's more inward looking that we're able to see. That is something that Keki and Daruwala actually does. ठीक है. So ये please याद रखिएगा that whenever we are looking at Keki and Daruwala, what are we able to see? We are able to see that Daruwala, he is very clear that my poetry has to be inward looking. Just zoom this and see this. I'm not an urban writer, and my poems are rooted in the rural landscape. So he even says that urban चीजों के बारे में तो कोई भी लिख लेगा और सबको पता है, पर मेरा काम है कि जो अर्बन लोगों में, जो अर्बन सेंटर्स में लोग हैं, वो रूरल पार्ट्स के बारे में भी जान पाए. Right? He says a majority of people are well aware. A majority of people are well aware. But what is my job? What is my responsibility? My job, my responsibility is to tell people about the rural idea as well. So, what are you able to see? He is therefore a poet of the landscape. He is therefore a poet of nature who's inward looking altogether. And what are you able to see? He talks about the Indian lifestyle in greater detail. He's trying to tell you about this Indian lifestyle in greater detail, the incompetence, the romantic illusions that we create around our living that doesn't make any sense. The fact that we are so attached to certain things that are hollow. So, he's making a commentary on the lifestyle that we live. He's making a commentary how this lifestyle is not something which is technically, liberating at all. He says that categorically. He says that this particular lifestyle that we are unfortunately living doesn't liberate us, rather tightens us altogether. Right? इनका hawk जो है, that is one work that you are able to see taken from the Keeper of the Dead. The Keeper of the Dead altogether. Okay, hawk is trained as a hunting bird. Okay, hunting bird. But this hawk is busy describing what a human nature actually looks like. Okay, so that is another thing that you're able to see. So the bird of prey, that is there, the bird of prey is trying to talk about, it is trying to talk about the human behavior, right? It is trying to, so it's literally trying to, the destructive, violent creature is trying to talk about human behavior in the Hawk by Keki and Daruwala. Chinar, again, a beautiful, work that Keki and Daruwala has written. Okay, and we are able to see that this oriental tree जो है, ये कहाँ से आई थी? It was brought to Kashmir from Persia. Okay, and probably originated in Greece altogether. And Kashmiris call it baun, right? Baun is what they actually call it. It's called chinar in Persian altogether. So again, things like, just look at it like when we talk about Dilip Chetri from Maharashtra, Marathi and English writer, Indian poet, right? Or when we talk about Keki and Daruwala, they're using these symbols. Hawk is one work that Keki and Daruwala has written. Chinar is another work altogether. And जो Mughal Emperor Jahangir tha, when he set his foot in Kashmir on the autumn day, he saw from a distance a number of chinar trees covered with crimson leaves altogether. Okay? So he was also able to see that what a chinar, what a beautiful blaze altogether. So kaise even even kings were actually something, they were besotted with the beauty of this tree, this exotic looking tree, which became symbolic of the landscape altogether. So hawk ostensibly a prey eating bird, लेकिन वो destructive human nature के बारे में बताती है. Then you are able to see chinar talking about this exotic looking plant altogether. So nature, this is what we were saying. He says, I'm not an urban poet, I will tell you about nature. right? This is what he talks about. I am not an urban poet. What will I do? I will tell you about nature. So that is what he actually discusses over here, right? So it is describing the chinar tree in autumn. Autumn ka onset ke upar hai, right? That is what you're able to see. Falling leaves also it shows. So the beauty which is there in prime. Okay. So these were the three important poets, Charushil Singh being one, your Keki and Daruwala being the second, the third of course being your दिलीप क्षेत्री. अब जल्दी से दो और दो और important writers करते हैं. Now when we are talking about who's the first most important poet in India, it is Henry Vivian Derozio. ठीक है, he's an Anglo-Indian. He's our fourth important poet that we are having. So Michael Madhusudan Dutt, Toru Dutt, we just talk about them also, and of course Henry Louis Vivian Derozio. These were actually some of your initial Indian English poets who were very very popular. Okay, he became a very popular lecturer at Hindu College. People were very enthusiastically involved in his lectures. लोग इनको एक तरह से एक leader समझते थे. Kids were very inspired by him altogether. That is what you are able to see. तो इसको आपको याद रखना. Good evening, Sunil. गुड इवनिंग. तो इसको थोड़ा सा आपने ध्यान में रखना पड़ेगा. And he of course worked all together. Now what are you able to see that he actually started this debating society as well. The Parthenon was a magazine that he started. ये question आ सकता है क्योंकि कभी आया नहीं है. So this is a question that can actually be asked also. Please remember he was a major influence on the students. He was like a pied piper for the students. जो ये बोलेंगे वही स्टूडेंट्स करेंगे, राइट? लाइक द पाइपर ऑफ हैमलिन टेकिंग स्टूडेंट्स ऑल टुगेदर. इसको आप कंपेयर कीजिए मास्टर एंड मार्गरीटा से बाय मिखाइल बाल्गकोव, द रशियन राइटर. क्योंकि बाल्गकोव मास्टर एंड मार्गरीटा में भी यही बता रहे हैं दैट हाउ दैट प्रोफेसर इज एबल टू स्वे पीपल. सो दैट इज आल्सो अनदर थिंग दैट you're able to see all together. ठीक है, सो प्लीज कीप दैट इन माइंड. नेहा बच्चे, आई थिंक यू जॉइंड इन लेट. मैंने स्टार्टिंग में बोल दिया था कि कल से हम लोग आपके वेस्ट बंगाल सेट का भी रिविजन करेंगे. एंड जो आज हम कर रहे हैं ये इंडियन पोएट्स, इनसे भी आपके क्वेश्चन वेस्ट बंगाल सेट में आ सकते हैं. Right, so when we are talking about your Charushil Singh, when we are talking about Keki and Daruwala, when we are talking about Dilip Chetri, when we are talking about Henry Vivian Derozio, Toru Dutt, Tarulata Dutt, so all of these are also writers जो आपके West Bengal set में भी आ सकते हैं. ठीक है बच्चे, so please remember that. Alright, but कल हम लोग definitely will be looking at that as well, so please keep that in mind. Okay, अच्छा, now what are you able to see? The Fakir of Jangira, Metrical Tale and Other Poems, इसका publication date आप याद रखिएगा, because this is of course important. Poems like To India, My Native Land, The Harp of India, To the Pupils of Hindu College, these are all very famous works that you are able to see. अच्छा, फकीर ऑफ जंगीरा में किसकी स्टोरी बता रहा है? नूलिनी की स्टोरी ये बता रहा है. शी इज अ हिंदू कास्ट विडो हु इज रेस्क्यूड फ्रॉम अ फ्यूनरल पायर ऑफ हर हस्बैंड बाय अ रॉबर चीफ. रॉबर चीफ जो है, he is the one who's actually rescuing Nulini, right? Nulini gets rescued, so therefore the fakir of Jangira comes in. You can compare it with U.R. Ananthamurthy's Samskara as well. The character of Chandri, the idea of being a soiled woman, in the society, वो चीज में भी आप उसको थोड़ा सा कंपेयर कर सकते हैं. ठीक है, सो प्लीज रिमेंबर दैट. इसी तरह से हेनरी विवियन डेरोजियो तो है ही. Nulini is of course there, the character that he creates. Writers, he's not a writer, but Kashi Prasad Ghosh also, by the way, please remember, he's important. He's written the Sair or the Minstrel and other poems. ठीक है, prosody में थोड़ा सा he was there. The Boatman's Song to Ganga, the Boatman's Song to Ganga, that is another work that Kashi Prasad Ghosh has written. It can come, now because they're asking you intricate questions, they can actually ask you this. Okay, and coming on to our fifth poet for today, that is Michael Madhusudan Dutt, right? Coming on to the fifth poet that we are having, the fifth poet is Michael Madhusudan Dutt. Now Michael Madhusudan Dutt, again a dramatist as well, that you are able to see. The Captive Lady इन्होंने एक लिखा है, which is about Samyukta's abduction by Prithviraj Chauhan. ठीक है, Visions of the Past is on Christian themes of Adam and Eve by Satan. Visions of the Past is one work which is there. Captive Lady is another word. work that you're able to see that he was talking about. Okay, now what are you able to see? Walter Scott was a major influence over here. He's also writing. He's also a person who's writing, your dramatic work. So ये भी Michael Madhusudan Dutt का major quality हो जाता है, that you're able to see that he's engaging in the writing of dramatic works as well, right? जो आपका dramatic works होता है उसके भी we are able to see that that is something that he's actually doing altogether. So that also you'll have to basically keep in mind. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Also, please remember, according to people like M.K. Nayak, जो प्रॉपर इंडियन इंग्लिश लिटरेचर हम पढ़ते हैं वो रिवोल्ट ऑफ 1857 के बाद आता है, बिकॉज पीपल आर हैविंग दिस प्राइड इन देमसेल्व्स. यहाँ पर ऑफ कोर्स आपकी दत्त फैमिली एल्बम, राइट, दत्त फैमिली एल्बम आ रहा है. You are able to see 187 poems by Govind Chandra Dutt, Hoor Chandra Dutt, and Grease Chandra Dutt, right? So all of these are actually coming in. Inki, so again, a lot of these people who are getting educated, a lot of these people who are going back, they are getting training all together, they are coming back, or इसी time पे a lot of these people are actually writing, right? इसी time पे you are able to see that a lot of these people have actually written also. तो ये कुछ कुछ चीजें हैं that you will have to keep in mind, that how these people, right, how these people are precursors, how you are able to see that they are the ones who are actually giving, they are actually giving a lot of voice all together. तो ये थोड़ा सा you'll have to keep it in mind that they are one of the key architects that anyone is actually able to see. ठीक है, so please keep that in mind. Please remember that altogether, because कई बार we very often forget all of these ideas. Over here I think I lost the comment section, sorry. Yeah, so this is something that you will actually have to keep in mind. Okay, and Tarulata Dutt, of course इस पे आपके नेट में वैसे क्वेश्चंस आते भी हैं. She's Toru Dutt all together. ये वो फैमिलीज थी जो अफोर्ड कर पा रहे थे, they were able to afford to go to Europe, they were very rich already over here, तो इनको कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं हो रही थी, right? And she's the daughter of Govind Dutt, right? He converted to Christianity altogether. They sailed to England. Toru उसकी जो sister थी Aru, and her brother Abju. So that is what you are able to see. And overall the kind of work that she's written, a chef gleaned in French fields, that she's writing. Ancient ballads and legends of Hindustan is another work that is coming, right? Writing about Sita, Savitri, Dhruv, Prahlad, altogether. Bianca or the Young Spanish Maiden, ये सारे के सारे works जो हैं. Why she called the Keats of India? She's famously called as the Keats of India because she died very young and she was getting inspired. I think जो मैंने starting में आपको चारुशील सिंह के बारे में पूछा था, that who's famously called as the Blake. Many of you were mentioning about Toru Dutt, but Toru Dutt was not the right answer over here. ठीक है, तो बेसिकली हम लोगों ने क्या देखा है, we said that top 10 poets में 5 poets आज करेंगे. So we looked at Charushil Singh, we talked about Keki and Daruwala, born in Lahore in 1937, talking about works like Hawk, and he said that he's not an urban poet, he's a rural poet, talking about landscape altogether. So Hawk में वो बता रहे हैं, right? That's what you're largely able to see, how KK and Darwal actually comes in. Hawk the Predator that you're able to look at, or Dilip Chetri who's coming. Ode to Bombay is a work that Dilip Chetri has written. You can also dig in a little deeper about Dilip Chetri. Then we looked at Henry Vivian Derosio, and then finally, of course, Michael Madhusudan Dutt was talking about, of course, Prithviraj Chauhan and Sanyukta's story, The Captive Lady, and you're also able to see that he talks about the original Sin of Adam and Eve as well. So those kind of topics also ये लोग लिख रहे हैं. तो these are our so-called poets that we are looking at today. ये 5 हमारे poets हैं. हम लोगों ने magical realism को भी revise किया, how it comes from the German word. Nose को देखा, set in St. Petersburg. Nose finally miraculously मिल जाता है. But again, how a lot of other readings are coming. Now today your homework question that I want all of you to work on before कल हम लोग जब मिलेंगे, कल हम लोग कुछ क्वेश्चंस वेस्ट बंगाल सेट के पर्सपेक्टिव से भी करेंगे. साथ में टॉपिक जो कल का होगा, इस हफ्ते हम लोग इंडियन एस्थेटिक्स, कंपैरेटिव इंडियन ड्रामा, इंडियन पोएट्री पे फोकस कर रहे हैं. नेक्स्ट वीक भी थोड़ा सा देखेंगे कैसे इसको मूव करना है. तो कल ऑफ कोर्स हम लोग इसको करेंगे, कल हम लोग ऑफ कोर्स इसको कवर करेंगे. और आपका होमवर्क क्वेश्चन आज क्या है, एक जो बुक आपकी है इंग्लिश के लिए, दैट इज कॉल्ड अरविंद कृष्ण मेहरोत्रा. अरविंद कृष्ण मेहरोत्रा who's also delivered multiple sessions at universities like Ashoka University. Arvind Krishna Mehrotra is also a poet. ठीक है, I want you to write, write the names of a few famous poetry collection जो कि जीव पटेल और अरविंद कृष्ण मेहरोत्रा ने लिखी है. जीव पटेल is also an Indian poet that you are having. ठीक है, अजीब पटेल, आदिल जसवाला, ये सारे भी आपके इंपॉर्टेंट पोएट्स हैं. एंड अरविंद कृष्ण मेहरोत्रा, राइट, अरविंद कृष्ण मेहरोत्रा that we are talking about. I want you to write in the comment section. I want you to write, and आप लोग जो जो I want everybody to participate, right? And please let your friends also know that we are having regular classes. I meet you, from Monday to Friday. I'm meeting you at 10:30. And otherwise also we are having a lot of these series that are going on. ठीक है, आपकी 2 सीरीज स्टार्ट हो गई हैं. एक है लाइफ चेंजिंग वर्क्स, कल से आई थिंक आपको यूट्यूब पे मिलेगा, ये थोड़ा मोटिवेशन के लिए है. एंड सेकेंडली और क्रैश कोर्स ऑन पोस्ट कॉलोनियल लिटरेचर, ये आपको परसों से स्टार्ट मिल जाएगा. ठीक है, तो ये आपकी कुछ कुछ और एडिशनल चीजें हैं जो यूट्यूब पे आपको मिलेंगी. Monday to Friday, let your friends also know that at 10:30 p.m. we meet regularly. You can let me know what all help you want. And 200% आपको वेस्ट बंगाल सेट का भी कल से प्रॉपर सपोर्ट मिलेगा. आज भी जो हमने किया है फ्रॉम वेस्ट बंगाल सेट्स पर्सपेक्टिव, इट इज ऑफ कोर्स इंपॉर्टेंट, आई वोंट डिनाई दैट. ठीक है, तो जीव पटेल एंड अरविंद कृष्ण मेहरोत्रा की जो पोएटिक क्रिएशंस हैं, पोएटिक वर्क्स हैं, आई वांट यू टू पुट इन द कमेंट सेक्शन. फाइन. If in case there are any other doubts that you will have, please let me know about it. Otherwise, I'll catch up with all of you tomorrow at 10:30 p.m. Fine. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me in. And in case if there are any other concerns, do keep me posted about that. Fine. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good night and sweet dreams. Sleep really well. Okay. सब लोग सो गए, इसलिए good night. Huh? All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Divya. Thank you so much. Good night. Thank you, Dominator Rajneesh. Thank you so much. Take good care of yourselves. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Supratim, Tehseen, Sonali, Shabnam. 10:30 p.m. Anjali, Debashish, Dominator, Neha, and okay, so sweet. Good night, everyone. Thank you.